Hey, you're looking good today. This is Frank in the Brazil Times newsroom, and this is what's happening. In today's edition of the Brazil Times, regional repeat. And our sports editor, Kerry Fox, did an outstanding job of covering the regional games on Saturday. You have his full reports in today's edition of the Brazil Times and the BrazilTimes.com online. So you can read about how your Northview Knights won the regionals for the second year in a row. And you can also follow us all the way as the Northview Knights continue their march to Victory Field. Also, as we told you about last week, a bank account has been opened for a man with 2 children who received extensive burns in a crash. When Tanner Montag's truck hit a utility pole on Mother's Day, he thought he was going to be okay until he tried to get out of his truck. A live electric line was laying across the truck and he was electrocuted, resulting in extensive burns. A bank account has been set up at Riddell National Bank, and you can contribute to Tanner Montag and his children by going to Riddell National Bank. Read more about that in today's edition of the Brazil Times. Lori Brown's here. Hey, good to see you today, Lori. Also in today's edition, school's out and local officials are offering some summertime safety tips parents can use as talking points with their children. Called Summer Safety for Kids, the Brazil Times will publish a different summer safety tip provided by the city police and fire departments in Monday papers until school resumes in August. So be sure and look for that in the Monday editions of the Brazil Times. Are you bugged by cicadas? Well, guess what? They're back, and they're back 4 years earlier than expected. We have that story for you in today's edition of the Brazil Times as well. Inside, a lot of national and state news to report, and of course always our obituaries. And let's see, what else do we have? A lot of community news also. First Farmers Bank and Trust of Brazil and the Veterans of Foreign Wars Post 1127 and American Legion Post 2 joined forces recently to help Liberty Village of Terre Haute. And during the 25th anniversary of the National Association of Letter Carriers Stamp Out Hunger food drive, no donation was too small. It all adds up, said Karen E. Sterling, branch president of the local NALC chapter, who was busy organizing and directing the many events or volunteers involved in the event on May 13th. We have that report for you. And on our opinion page, Linda Messmer, the mesmerizing Linda Messmer, says she's always been afraid of Texas. So you can read about that. She says, when you were a little kid, was there ever a place that scared you? Maybe you'd never been there, but the thought of it was frightening, kind of like the hospital or jail. My scary place was Texas. And she said, our family lived a couple blocks from multiple railroad tracks, and trains went by frequently, even daily. Often empty cars were just left sitting on unused tracks, and when needed, an engine would switch over to those tracks and could be heard loudly coupling with an empty car going on its way. And then she goes on to talk about how that led her to her fear of Texas. We also have our column we call This Week That Year in Clay County, and this week that year was June 4 through 10, 1946. Did you know there was a bread shortage in America after the war? And the Brazil Times covered that story as we talked about what the bread shortage was like here in Clay County. Also, let's see, Trudy Lieberman of the Rural Health News Service has a letter to the editor. She says elderly may see drastic cuts in Medicaid and Medicare services. So if you're interested in the elderly, you might want to check that out. Oh, here we go. Let's look at our kids. Family Circus. Dolly is just waking up and she says, I had a wonderful dream. I hope they show the sequel tonight. Well, I hope they do too, for your sake, Dolly. And Bradshaw's here. Glad to see you this morning. And let's see. In sports, of course, as we've already talked about, Kerry Fox, our sports editor, the hardest working man in sports, has 3 pages for you today. He's talking about the Knights. He's also talking about Eden Disciples, and that was part of the 44th annual Girls Track and Field Championship, and it provided its share of historic efforts on Saturday evening. Read about Eden Disciples in today's edition. And she has a story here. Northview junior Ellie Tipton advanced to the individual tennis regional at Kokomo before losing on Saturday. So she had a great run, and that's wonderful. We're glad to see that. As I said, a lot of state and national news inside for you to look at. A lot more in depth than you'll find anywhere else, I might add. But if you want to know more about the big stories of the day, this is the place to be, the Brazil Times. Also have our Clay County Planner. If you want to know what's going on, man, a lot of stuff happening, and you'll want to know about that. And also today we've got a picture of 4 young men who have what looks like fireworks bombs sitting in front of them. Do you recognize those guys? If you can name them, email me, frankphillips@gmail.com, and we'll give you credit in a future edition. Hey, Evelyn. Hey, Teresa. Teresa Taft and Evelyn Brown joined us this morning on this fine Monday morning. Hey, I want to mention also we've got some ads out of the 1946 Brazil Times to share with you in today's edition as well. We've got tonight's movies at the Lark and the Sour Wine Theaters, and you can see what was playing in 1946. Also, Sutho Soothing Suds. They're best for washing dainty underthings. And it was made in Indianapolis, so you can check that out. Also, we've got an ad from 1946 for the 4th of July celebration at Forest Park in beautiful Brazil, Indiana. Kind of neat to see that ad that was in the Brazil Times as well. And of course, we've got extensive coverage of the Saturday night attack in London and how the Brits are standing up to the people that did those things. So, a lot of great stuff in today's edition of the Brazil Times. Now, this is what we're working on today. At 2 o'clock this afternoon, there's going to be a dedication service in Clay City or near Clay City for their new waterworks plant. We'll be covering that. County meetings today, we'll be going to that, and I also understand that the Silver Sneakers Group has donated $1,000 to the YMCA, and there's going to be a donation, a check presentation for that today as well. So we're going to be busy, plus there will be a lot more. In fact, last night the band, the Brazil Concert Band, had their first concert of the season, and it went very well, we trust. They certainly had beautiful weather for it. What's on the program for next week? Well, we'll tell you later today at www.thebraziltimes.com. Well, this is Frank in the Brazil Times newsroom. Always glad to see you, and I'm going to be out and about today, so until we get together, have a great one, won't you?